Hi, we're back. I'm Charlene.
I'm Khalif.
And we're the Legends. Today we're here to talk very openly and honestly about a subject that's super sensitive for us, and it is the autism spectrum disorder, also referred to as autism.
And this, especially special to us because we have a son, Philip, who's 11 now, and he's on the spectrum. And so we thought that you guys might want to know a little bit about what that is.
Yeah. So autism is a social emotional disorder that affects the ability to communicate, to kind of absorb written and verbal language. It definitely shows itself in repetitive behaviors and kind of like oppositional defiance, honestly.
And because there's no necessarily definitive answer to where it comes from or how it happens to kids, all we do know is that 1 in every 68 kids in America are considered to be autistic. But again, that changes throughout the year and depending where you're getting your stats from. But it's very important as parents, if you're having kids or you think there might be something amiss with your child, that you kind of begin to pay attention to some of the signs. And so we're just going to tell you a little bit about our story.
Yeah. So Philip is our second born together. Like he said, he's currently 11, but we're going to talk a little bit about kind of just like how perfect my time carrying him was. He was, it was like our best pregnancy. We had decided we were in a certain place in our marriage and we wanted to have a natural water birth. So we chose a birthing center to have Phil. And I just felt like my entire pregnancy was the most spiritual experience. And I just felt like he was going to be the perfect kid because he was just starting off the perfect way. We gave birth to him in a birthing center. It was called the Birthing Cottage of Winter Park. And there was no medicine. There was just my husband and myself kind of working through the pain and the labor. And it was like perfect. They released him that night. So he's born at like 4:30. By 8 o'clock we were at home. It was just, everything was perfect about it. Right up until he got to be, I guess from the beginning, we kind of knew there was a little something off. We used to refer to him as the baby that just didn't like us, He was definitely more fussy, more cranky than our first child, and it was like we weren't really able to get a feel for what his needs were, and it just seemed like we were doing everything wrong. As he got older, the signs became a little bit more apparent. As he rounded off 1, he wasn't trying to kind of assimilate into the normal family structure the way kids typically do. He wasn't looking to us for how do I do this, or when we were in public, he was never trying to be up under us. He was going wherever we weren't. We didn't think he liked us or cared to be around us, honestly. It was pretty tough as he didn't really develop any language. There was no eye contact very early. And again, if there were 18 hours that we were awake a day, he was screaming for 17 of them. Mm-hmm.
And so I think for any parent who's watching this, you want to watch for certain things because when Phil was 1, there was some clear indications, there was no sense of connecting. Hey, let me show you this. And we learned later that it's considered what they call parallel play, where, for example, you have 2 kids in a room, there's 1 ball. And let's say kid A is actively engaged with playing with kid B because kid B is throwing the ball back. Kid A may not recognize that kid B is not necessarily engaged in the same game. Actually, kid B is really having a game all by himself. And so I want to say when Phil was 2, Phil would, walk off, or he would walk away and you would call for Phil and Phil would not respond. And really, I just thought it was a diss to me as a father, or, maybe he just didn't like me. And so, of course, that created, a very much deep-seated insecurity in me as a father. And I think, for the most part, as a family, it was very much challenging because, we're black people, church going, raised by your mom and them, cousin them. And so like discipline and having your kids more or less in order is a big thing. And so, when you saw behaviors that was, very much a thing like, screaming or just not listening or walking away, it's like, well, what are you doing with your kid? And so,
Yeah, and we put him in preschool. We got to Atlanta and he was about 2, and we put him in preschool, and immediately some of the behaviors that we kind of thought we were seeing at home became very apparent, because now he's in a structured learning environment and he's really not fitting. Kids wanted to engage with him in play. He got very territorial. I think he hit somebody. Did he bite somebody or something?
Yeah, he threw chairs.
He did all the things, and the behaviors were much more exaggerated in school than they were at home. But it was very apparent to us that something had to give, and we had to figure something out. So we began the process when he was about 3 of getting him diagnosed, which, to be very, very honest and transparent, that process takes a little over a year. It's not like take him to the doctor. You take him to the doctor, and the doctor will refer you to a developmental pediatrician. And it's very different from your typical pediatrician. And we were lucky enough to be in Atlanta, where they have one of the foremost research centers for autism, the Marcus Autism Institute. And that waiting list was like 9 months. And we were like, but we don't have 9 months. He doesn't want to exist in the same world with us. But we kind of had to sit on that list. A couple things happened, I think, in our favor. So we got seen rather early, but that process alone is months. So I had to leave my job because Philip would have 4-hour appointments, and there would be a developmental psychologist, there would be speech and language pathologists, there would be all these different specialists that had to observe him in play for hours to determine really what was happening. Finally, at the end of the months and months and months of evaluations, we got a diagnosis that Philip was on the autism spectrum. And I think by the time we got it, we were kind of sure he was, We had done all the research. And when we got the diagnosis, they said, he's going to be high functioning, but this is still an extreme case. And we didn't know what to do with it. They gave us a packet of papers, this big, thick packet, which was our diagnosis, which was kind of how he performed and all the things. And then they were like, okay. And so I think what we've heard from lots of parents is, what do you do when you get the diagnosis? Like, they send you. They're like, okay, well, here you go. We did our job. And we were lost. We were emotional. We were devastated. We were depressed for a while. And then we just had to snap out of it. He was one of 5 children. We can't just let him sink. And so we did all the things. We kind of swallowed a little bit of our pride and a little bit of our control that we thought we had over our lives.